is on?
Yeah, we're hot. Not that we don't know you, but why don't you, for official purposes, we make it all official. What's your name, sir?
I'm Ben Brafman. I'm criminal defense lawyer, and I'm representing Harvey Weinstein.
And could you spell your last name?
B as in boy, R-A, F as in Frank, M-A-N.
Okay. And obviously, I'm not going to be on camera given my appearance. So, let's just try to, if we can, include my questions in your answers, so that way the bites are clean and we can use the whole thing and we don't have to edit. So, the first thing I think, because this could get lost on the layman, what exactly just occurred in court today?
I think today was a pretty important and positive development with respect to the case against Mr. Weinstein, and it's good for Mr. Weinstein. A judge of the Supreme Court of New York County formally dismissed one important count of the indictment against him, which means that he no longer will have to face that charge. But what's really important, in my view, is the letter that was disclosed that we've known about for several weeks, but was kept under seal, which implies and suggests rather strongly that Lucia Evans, the person named in the count that was dismissed, testified falsely in the grand jury when she accused Mr. Harvey of sexual. Let me start this whole answer again. Okay, no, let me start the whole answer again.
Okay.
I'll give you a shorter soundbite and then you can follow up. Okay.
Yeah, good.
I think what happened in court today is the judge supervising the case dismissed one of the counts against Mr. Weinstein, which charged him with the sexual assault of Lucia Evans, a crime that he has always denied. And now, on motion of the district attorney, they have conceded that that count has to be dismissed.
So dismissing the count. So is it that the alleged conduct didn't happen, or was it consensual?
I think what you take away from this case is that the conduct didn't happen, and that this woman falsely accused Mr. Weinstein of a crime that he did not commit.
So the sexual interaction that was alleged, that Weinstein allegedly committed, did that occur? They had some sort of sexual contact that was a consensual encounter?
Let me explain it this way.
Yeah,
if there was a sexual interaction between Mr. Weinstein and Lucia Evans, it was purely voluntary on both sides, and therefore not a criminal matter, and therefore not worth discussing.
Okay. So that element of this indictment is dismissed. The district attorney was very clear, full steam ahead. I guess their general point is these kinds of things happen, but there are other victims, there are other counts. Weinstein is still accused of pretty egregious, criminal conduct. What's your response to the DA saying full steam ahead?
I don't think the district attorney, with all due respect, had any choice but to say full steam ahead. I think they're in a box, and to stand up and dismiss the whole case against Mr. Weinstein would be earth-shattering at this point in time, even though, in my opinion, it would be the appropriate thing to do. But their suggestion that the case is going to proceed full steam ahead is just that. It's a suggestion. This case is damaged goods. It's based on perjured testimony, and the perjured testimony, we will argue, has irreparably prejudiced the legal proceedings, so that the court will ultimately have no choice but to dismiss all of the counts facing Mr. Weinstein. And I should also answer as well, since it was raised, that, well, what about the rape count? The only rape charge that faces Mr. Weinstein in this case, and in any case around the country, quite frankly, is a rape charge claimed by a woman with whom he had a multi-year consensual sexual relationship. And we have demonstrated to the court that there are in excess of 400 emails between Mr. Weinstein and this woman who claims that she was raped, and many of these emails are after the date of the alleged rape, in which there is an endearing, intimate, friendly conversation, if you will, between this woman and Mr. Weinstein. And the district attorney's response is, well, there's no email that says there was no rape. I mean, how could you have an email saying there was no rape when there was no rape? That's a ridiculous comment. And the district attorney has confirmed that they did not tell the grand jury about those emails. And if you read those emails, it's inconceivable to me that the grand jury would have indicted Mr. Weinstein for rape, because this woman who he allegedly raped within 10 days of the alleged rape, is asking to see Mr. Weinstein again, giving him her new cell phone number, and wanting to introduce him to her mother, who is going to meet them for dinner in either L.A. or New York.
So after court today, Evan's attorney was pretty forceful in saying that that we witnessed in court this morning is the reason why women don't come forward. That, you know, women that have been the victims of assaults and illicit conduct, you know, they are trauma victims. They usually do not wind up being perfect witnesses because of the trauma they've experienced. And people like yourself, with all due respect, wind up using their imperfections against them in order to get these cases thrown out and basically validate conduct. What's your response to that kind of accusation?
It's just a stupid accusation under the facts of this case, and with all due respect to Ms. Evans' lawyer, she needs a criminal lawyer, because the evidence demonstrates that she committed perjury. She no longer needs a personal injury lawyer who's suing Mr. Weinstein for money. This is, and always has been, about seeing Mr. Weinstein as a deep pocket. He's vulnerable because he was vilified in the New Yorker and in the New York Times. He appeared to be low-hanging fruit to lawyers around the country who think they can just make a claim. But Lucia Evans is different. This is not victim shaming, and this is not a woman who is being accused of giving inconsistent statements. This is a woman who lied to the grand jury, who then told the truth to her husband shortly thereafter, in which she claimed nothing happened, who told the truth to her friend, who told the DA that she claimed nothing happened. This isn't Brafman doing a good job only. This is the district attorney dismissing her claim, not Brafman dismissing her claim. And you ask Ms. Evans' lawyers when they've seen the district attorney stand up and say, we give up on this claim. This is not a case of taking a person and who is vulnerable. Give me a break. She didn't go to the police. She went to the New Yorker with this claim. She didn't go to a precinct. She went to the New Yorker with this claim, and it was a New Yorker fact checker who stumbled upon, you know, this disparity in her testimony, told it to the lead detective, who kept it in his pocket and didn't tell the DA, and told the independent witness sometimes less is more, implying that she should not tell the DA the truth. This is outrageous, what happened today, and I will tell you that for Lucia Evans to say what she said is equally offensive, because if you testify falsely in the grand jury, you are undermining the process for every woman who's out there telling the truth. Not Lucia Evans, but if a woman has a truthful claim, she'll get her day in court. But this woman, we believe, from the evidence, and the district attorney agrees, committed perjury. I don't know how they can respond saying that this is what Brafman, you know, does. I'm happy, you know, that I was able to get a measure of justice today for Mr. Weinstein, and the case is not over. But as I drill down on these facts, I've come away more and more with the understanding that many of the women who have come forward have lied, and I come away with a better understanding that when they lied to the journalists, instead of pressing back and drilling down and attempting to corroborate their testimony, they looked to the volume and the number of people to corroborate the testimony of witness A, instead of looking at witness A's statement saying, this doesn't make any sense, maybe we should press on the details. I've been doing this for 40 years, and I was a prosecutor. This is serious as it gets when you lie in the grand jury.
On that point, it is pretty rare. It was almost cinematic this morning, the fact that you have the DA making the application to the court to dismiss their own counts in a high-profile case. Can you tell us how unusual that is for the DA to ask for pieces of their own indictment to be thrown out?
I've seen it in a couple of cases in 40 years out of the thousands that I've either been involved in or monitored. It's extremely rare, and when it happens, it's really, really important to understand what happened. The district attorney has said Lucia Evans is not worthy of belief. This has nothing to do with Ben Brafman making the suggestion that she didn't tell the truth. This is them doing the investigation now that they should have done before they arrested Harvey Weinstein. And from the minute he was arrested, he has maintained that he did not sexually assault Lucia Evans or anyone else. And to be perfectly candid with you, people say that when they're arrested sometimes, and the evidence suggests otherwise. In this case, all of the evidence I've been developing suggests to me that Harvey Weinstein was telling the truth. And however offensive some of the conduct may have been over the years, was he, verbally abusive to people? Yes. Did he, at times do things that other people might claim, to be inappropriate? Perhaps. But that's a big difference. He's being charged with crimes that expose him to life in prison. And when you do that to someone and take away their life and their freedom and threaten them in that manner, you better be right. And when you're not right, more often than not, the system has a way of weeding out the people who are liars.
Equally odd is what was laid out in the letter and discussed briefly in court today about the conduct of the lead investigator in the case. Can you explain, so we understand for a layman audience, what is it you're saying here about the conduct of the detective?
Well, it's not just us. It's what the district attorney and Mr. Weinstein's lawyers are saying about the conduct. There was an independent witness who had evidence that Lucia Evans lied. The detective interviewed her, and she was represented by a lawyer who happens to be a former assistant United States attorney, and she told Detective Dubois Do that what Lucia Evans said to the New Yorker and what she said in the grand jury was not true. That Lucia Evans told her what happened, and it didn't involve a criminal assault. And the detective did not share that information with the district attorney's office. He did not share that information with the grand jury, and he allowed Lucia Evans to testify twice under oath, we believe, in the grand jury about an incident that he knew to be false. And he hid it from the district attorney's office. And indeed, when the witness told him what Lucia Evans told her, his response to her was sometimes, quote, less is more, close quote, implying that if you tell this material to the DA, it's going to be bad for Lucia Evans and good for Harvey Weinstein. That's offensive to men, women, anyone who believes that our system is supposed to operate with some degree of integrity. That's a scary proposition.
So the detective's conduct then tainted this element of the indictment, or your contention is the detective's conduct tainted the whole case?
If you look at the articles that have been written about this investigation, Detective Dubois Do has been touted by the chief of detectives, the chief of the SVU unit, as the detective who's been interviewing the potential Harvey Weinstein witnesses all over the country. Indeed, all over the world. They've been flying them to Europe, they've been flying them to LA, to other cities, other countries. And if the detective who is interviewing these people has this kind of baggage, who knows what he may have said to other witnesses who had information that was exculpatory to Mr. Weinstein and, suggested to them that they should not come forward. Understand what's happened here. I know it's hard when you represent someone like Mr. Weinstein, who's been so vilified in the press, that it makes it difficult for you to do your job. That's when people who do what I do really need to step up. Because if we allow someone like Mr. Weinstein, or anyone for that matter, to lose his company, his livelihood, his work, his family, and potentially his freedom on the basis of news stories that suggest he's a bad guy, and then that leads to a criminal prosecution that's based on lies, well, that's scary. That's scary to anyone who believes in due process and the criminal justice system as it should work in the United States.
So you are now going to be filing additional paperwork. Are you seeking to dismiss the entire, all counts through both the indictments as a result of the conduct that's been discussed by the DA?
Absolutely. We're seeking the dismissal of all counts, the entire indictment. It's the same grand jury that voted the Lucia Evans count, who voted the other counts. We believe they were tainted. There's no way that you can reconstruct what evidence they relied on, what evidence prejudiced them, what evidence they believed, didn't believe. But when you combine the fact that they withheld the emails between the alleged rape victim and Mr. Weinstein, which would have destroyed her credibility, when you add to it the Lucia Evans perjury, when you add to it the detective's criminal conduct, this indictment cannot, in my opinion, survive under the legal precedents that have been established in this state.
You're also, according to what you said in court today, planning to subpoena records from the New Yorker magazine. Can you explain that?
We believe that the New Yorker magazine maintained notes that they may have also taped some of the women they interviewed, and as a start, we're going to subpoena the evidence that they may have about Lucia Evans, because we now know that what she said to the New Yorker, at least as the New Yorker printed, was a lie. And who knows what she said to the New Yorker and how they shaped that article. What happened when the fact checker reported back and said to whoever they report back to that the independent witness does not corroborate Lucia Evans or says nothing about sexual assault? What do you do then? Do you just write it and then you don't care because you got Harvey Weinstein in the crosshairs and he's vulnerable? That's not the way journalists are supposed to work.
Just on the sort of appearance side of things, Harvey Weinstein didn't look particularly well in court today. He seemed to have a limp. He seemed a little bit disheveled. Can you explain, did you notice that? Can you explain if there's some sort of health ailment that we're not aware of?
Harvey Weinstein is, not particularly well, but it has nothing to do with this case. He has a series of medical issues that are really nobody else's business. He did not look disheveled. I disagree with you, and I ask you to consider how you might look, or how anyone might look, if they've been falsely accused of horrific crimes that they did not commit, and you are in court fighting for your life, and your company has been taken away, your film library has been taken away, your family has essentially been taken away as a practical matter. He's trying to get better. He's trying to be a better father. He's trying to be a better friend. He is, in my opinion, doing as well as can be expected when you consider the circumstances of being accused of sex crimes that you maintain you did not commit. I think he's doing, remarkably well under the circumstances. I've seen, people have a nervous breakdown in his position, guilty or not guilty. And when you're not guilty, and the whole world thinks you're guilty, I think you look forward to a day like this when at least you have the world see some glimpse of how this came about. And I think people really need to step up and say, you know what, maybe we should give this guy the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we should not be so quick to terminate his existence. Because, one thing is for certain, Harvey Weinstein is perhaps one of the great film geniuses of certainly my generation, and I think the films he has made are among the best movies in the history of America, and I would hate to see that life and that talent snuffed out on the basis of a lot of articles and a lot of allegations. And let me address one other issue that I know comes up again and again and again. People say, but there are 50 women, there are 70 women. They throw out numbers and they just make up these numbers. Those people don't allege sexual assault. Many of those are hostile work environment allegations. Harvey was mean to me. Harvey used bad language. Harvey harassed me into quitting. Harvey, made it impossible for me to continue to work there. Yeah, there are some allegations of inappropriate behavior, but I have seen no proof, none, of criminal sexual assault. And when you look back at how this started, all of the luminaries of this case have all imploded based on either lies that have been exposed or hypocrisy that they have exposed themselves to. And I'm not going to name all of them, but you know who they are. And all of the people who get quoted again and again and again are not being used by any law enforcement agency as a complainant, have no credibility with the law enforcement community. And, an Algie Argento, with all due respect, who was one of the biggest critics of Harvey Weinstein, despite having a 4-year consensual relationship with Mr. Weinstein many, many years ago, has been, outed to be among the biggest hypocrites of this generation, where at the same time that she was condemning Mr. Weinstein for negotiating non-disclosure agreements, she and Mr. Bourdain, of blessed memory, were negotiating a non-disclosure agreement with a minor. All of the women in Mr. Weinstein's life have been adults.
I can't help but feel a little bit of deja vu here, that we watched you, as the public face of DSK when the DA's case against him was collapsing and then ultimately collapsed. We're now watching, at least a partial collapse, admittedly by the DA today, of their own case against Weinstein. Does the Manhattan DA's office just not know how to prosecute sex crimes?
I think the Manhattan District Attorney does an excellent job prosecuting sex crimes, and I believe they have a great record of prosecuting sex crimes. I think in both of those cases, what they were dealing with is, in the case of Dominique Strauss Kahn, a witness whose testimony was changing every 20 minutes, and ultimately they had 10 versions of the events that she claimed happened. And, Dominique Strauss Kahn, the case was dismissed, but he's not the president of France. His entire life was, turned upside down. So in that case, yeah, I think they used bad judgment in arresting him and prosecuting him. But to their credit, they stepped up and ultimately dismissed the case when I convinced them that there was no way that they were ever going to convict Dominique Strauss Kahn. So there are some similarities. The difficulty in that case is I wasn't dealing in that case with the rabid press. I wasn't dealing in that case with the man who had been vilified before entering the arena. I was dealing with someone who was on his way to become president of France and was considered a genius in many different countries. Before Mr. Weinstein got arrested, he was being vilified by the New York Times, by the Hollywood press, by many of the stations and outlets here, certainly by the tabloids around the world, and by the New Yorker, which is generally accepted to be a respected news outlet. So in this case, do I think the Manhattan District Attorney will eventually get up and agree to dismiss the case against Harvey Weinstein? I think he should, but I think, unfortunately, and I like Cy Vance and I respect him, but the optics are very bad for his office. New York Times accused him of not doing a good job in prosecuting Harvey Weinstein and suggested that his legacy would be tarnished forever if he didn't prosecute Harvey Weinstein. So they prosecuted him, and now they're stuck with a terrible case. So are there similarities? To some degree, yeah, a lot of the same players, and I'm in both of those cases. But in some respects, cases are the same. In some respects, cases are different.
Okay. Do you have anything that you haven't addressed that I haven't asked you about?
I don't know whether I have effectively addressed the issue of, is this damning to the Me Too movement, and is the Me Too movement bad? And I just want to make certain that my position on that, and Mr. Weinstein's position on that, if the Me Too movement is helpful to women in the world of industry and entertainment and business and school and professions and everywhere, in leveling the playing field and giving them an equal chance to be heard and seen and successful, and if it helps them deal with harassment or complaint or sexual assault, then it's a good thing. But if the Me Too movement is used to pressure people into prosecuting, men or women, on cases that are really bad cases, then it's a dangerous thing. I'm in the middle of a tsunami. I hate to use that as an example where people around the world are fighting to live through a terrible hurricane, but this is like dealing with the tsunami of bad press. And I've learned over the years that if you want to survive a tsunami, you hold on really tight to something solid until the wave passes, and then if you're still standing, you have a chance to survive. So you know what I'm holding on to? The integrity of the criminal justice system. I believe in it. I think ultimately it's going to be what saves Mr. Weinstein. And if I help save him, and if he gets exonerated, or they drop the case because he really is not guilty, then I think it's a good thing, and it's a good thing for men and women.
Caitlin, got anything?
No, good.
Boys? Anything? Judah?
Well, is Harvey Weinstein going to sue now for damages?
You want me to answer that question?
You can answer, just make sure you look at me.
People have asked me whether Harvey Weinstein now intends to sue. Right now, we're fighting to survive. Once this criminal case is over, and if Mr. Weinstein is, as I suspect, extricated from, the criminal justice system, my own advice would be, don't sue. Go put this chapter behind you and go on with your life. Because who are you going to sue? You're going to sue a couple of women who have no career and no assets, and you're going to bludgeon them by trying to, recover money. Harvey Weinstein has much larger pockets to sue. Companies who have taken his films, companies who have, disposed of him as if he wasn't the person responsible for their extraordinary success. So there may be lawsuits after this is over, but I'm not going to encourage him to sue Lucia Evans. I mean, this woman may end up in prison if the DA's office takes this development as easy as responsibly and as easy a prosecution as I think it is. But you know, they may pass, and if they do, they do. But that happens.
All right, you can go talk to WBC now.
Stopping tape.
Now that we got the good bites, you can go give Jonathan the bad bites.
Probably be the same bites.
No. Only the good stuff for ABC.
I know.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you, all of you.
Pleasure. Nice
Thank
meeting
you very much for your time.
Please put the table back.
Oh, yeah.